Hey everybody, it's Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean, here with your wonderful college football takes for the week. We broke down the week 1 games last week, and we're going to go ahead and look at week 2 for this weekend coming up. And I'm waiting for my co-host Ian. He's running a little behind, but he should be here shortly. But just to go down some things real quick before he jumps on with us. The game with FSU, LSU. FSU wins 45-24. It was, the game in the first half was predominantly LSU's game to blow them out. They had plenty of opportunities in that first half to score. The first drive they got into the, inside the 5, 6 plays inside the 5, couldn't punch it in. It's going to hurt. It's going to, cause some, momentum to go the other way for FSU. But still FSU didn't really take advantage of all that. They kept pace as far as the score. So it was 17-14.5. LSU had other opportunities in that half. Jordan Travis threw an interception. He almost threw another one inside their 15, which potentially could have been more points for LSU. So there was a lot of scenarios where LSU could have been up, 31, 34 to 14 at half. And that would have been a largely different game if that is the case. I know you can do the what if games on every game, but it just, it shows, especially in the first game of the year, you had Florida struggle. And we'll talk about Duke and Clemson in a little bit, but Clemson struggled as well to punch in. It's definitely something where if you're not able to punch in the beginning of the year, you're going to lose those games. And, the majority of teams play softball games, the terrible teams that they play so that they can get into the swing of things, except for, 5 or 6 games. And, it just happens to be that LSU plays a tough game the first game of the year and they get beat. It's not over for them. They have a lot to play for. The SEC is still up for grabs and potentially a playoff spot. So we'll see what happens with them. But FSU looks good in the second half and dominates and then, takes advantage of it. I will say, though, going into the fourth quarter, it still was only a 1-score game. And LSU right before the fourth quarter, the last play of the third quarter, if they hit that play, that pass from Daniels to his receiver, even if he just catches it right there and gets tackled, if it was a better throw, it should have been a touchdown because he completely beat that corner. If that's a touchdown right there, it's a tie game. And then anything is up for grabs there. Literally the next play into the fourth quarter is the receiver for LSU falls down and Daniels thinks he's on a comeback route and he throws it right to where he's supposed to be. And, the DB just jumps it because he sees the receiver fall over. So he's easily got it. So that was the difference right there. In that fourth quarter right there, if they can score on that drive, it's a tie game. Who knows what happens? But Florida State just put it on him at that point. And LSU's, the defense, they just fell apart near the end there. And it was, I think they scored 3 touchdowns in that fourth quarter. So the game was over. But anyways, Ian's here. So let me add him into the stream. Ian, what up, dude?
Hey there, guys.
All right. So I was just breaking down LSU, Florida State. And then you have anything on that before we move on real quick?
That was LSU just strictly defensively has to adjust. They got burned out way too early in that game, and you could tell they exploited that defense quick. They could not keep up with all those slanting passes. Florida State's receivers were way too fast, and they bit way too much on those misdirection plays. Especially, I remember there was a fourth down where it was a simple boot play, and the linebacker was about 4 yards away from the receiver. There is a lot defensively they need to adjust, and play calling wise as well. There needs to improve on just too vanilla, too basic. They didn't really utilize Jaden Daniels as well as I think they could have.
Well, I mean, I will say they still were able to move the ball. They had over what was it? I'm pretty sure Jaden Daniels had over 300 yards passing, and it definitely was a struggle because second half they only scored 7 points, so it definitely, and especially that last touchdown was at the very very end, but there were times
it was just the offense didn't make any adjustments to the defense. They tried calling the same plays as they did the first 2 quarters, and clearly Florida State knew what to expect, and there was just no counter to it.
Yeah, I just I will say, and I brought it up just a second ago, that the turning point there was that the end of the third quarter and then beginning of the fourth quarter, because Daniels was he had that long pass and the receiver dropped it, and if the receiver either catches it or the throw is better and he runs it in, it's a tie game. Literally the next play into the fourth quarter was the receiver falls down and he throws it right to the Florida State DB. So it's the juxtaposition between the end of the quarter and the start of the quarter, where it was basically the end of the game, essentially. It really was the turning point for the whole game. But okay, let's move on. Clemson Duke. Another game of not taking advantage of getting into the red zone. It was, I don't know how many trips they had inside the red zone, but they fumbled
at least 3.
Yeah, and it's just you can't miss field goals, block field goals. You can't, this is not Duke from 5 years ago where they were a 4-8 team. They're definitely a 9, maybe even possibly 10-win team. So, and they have, their quarterback is, considered a first-round pick.
Yeah,
so
Leonard.
So he's definitely capable, and there's some other players on their team that are very capable. The coach seems to know what he's doing. So it's it was not going to be an easy win for Clemson. I know they all thought that this was going to be a very good year for them. I still think it can be, the season's still it's not over, because technically if they win out, they would still play Duke in the ACC championship game. So they just have to, this is their mulligan, essentially. They took their one, and it sucks that it's the first game, but now they have to play perfect the rest of the year out. So, your thoughts on it before we break down these coming games?
Yeah. Now I'm going to play a little devil's advocate with it. You can't just predict all the turnovers, the badly timed fumbles and all that. The fumbling, because I believe it was 2 times they failed on the fumble.
Yeah.
That is just more unfortunate than anything.
Right.
But with that being said, it was just laughable how they just couldn't get anything going, how they relied way too much on same thing with LSU. The play calling just was so bare bones, basic, 4 or 5 yard high percentage plays. There was no real breakout play to change the momentum. The defense did very little to stop. I mean, that run from Riley Leonard, you got to bring him down for that. That was an impressive play by Riley Leonard, but the defense should have had him. It was just interesting, too, because I do feel like Clemson outplayed Duke that game. I know they outgained them, and I think they had way more time of possession and even first downs. But, man, when you can't capitalize in the red zone, that's going to be interesting to see play calling-wise. What are you going to do for Clemson? What are you going to do in the red zone? Because you can't go down there 3 times and come up with donuts. You have to capitalize. Because at least if, those 3 times, the game's tied 28-28.
Yeah.
So it's, very interesting. It's very tough. I don't say they're out of it, but my God, you could not start any worse than that. They have to be, as you stated, they have to be perfect to make the ACC championship. And now it's going to be, now you got to argue for them and to even make the playoff, but baby steps.
Well, I
Had an
mean,
embarrassing loss. You got to win the conference now.
they have a schedule that gives them the runway to get there. You know, they play Florida State at home, which, you know, I think they've beaten them 7 years in a row. And then I'm almost positive they play Notre Dame. And then they play possibly another good team in the ACC championship, be it Florida State or Duke. And then I think they play
I know they play
Miami.
North Carolina too.
Yeah, exactly. So they have like 4 or 5 marquee matchups. So it's like they're gonna have the opportunity. Oh, I think they just hit a home run. The Rays. Yeah, yep. Wait, no. Did that go off the wall? What just happened there? Was that not a home run? I don't know. It's so confusing, the Rays stadium. I wish it was just very simple. Like it hits that area, it's a home run. But sometimes it's like hits off certain walls and like, oh, it's not a home run. And I'm like, what?
Tell me about it. I mean, those catwalks, man. And I've been
Yeah.
going to that stadium since they were called the Devil Rays.
Oh yeah, dude. I was there like the first year. Anyways, so no, it's definitely very doable for them to get back into contention. It's, you know, it's the first game of the year, much like Florida and Utah. And I'm not saying Florida is going to get back into it because they're probably not. But like last year with Utah, you know, Utah lost that first game and they still got back into the Pac-12 race and they won it. So like clearly it's not the end of the world to lose the first game. And you know, last year LSU lost that first game and they got into the SEC championship game. So there is an opportunity to correct the path if the first game doesn't go your way. It sucks. Obviously, it's terrible. You don't want to start off the season that way. But I am such a huge fan of these games where they're playing non-conference games against much better opponents because it's much more interesting. I mean, the Clemson game was obviously conference opponents, but you know, I hope that going forward with an expanded playoff, that it gives the incentive for other teams to schedule these games because it's like it's not the end of the world to lose a game or two. And that's where it's key. It's like, you know, if teams are able to lose 2 games to get in the playoff, it's not that big a deal. So it's like, hey, we can still get in and we can still possibly win. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the Heisman list. I want to hear your list and then I'll give mine. Go ahead with your 5 through 1 or whatever you have. I want to hear what you got.
So what I have for my Heisman list is Caleb Williams, obviously, Michael Penix Jr. Had an outstanding game, and I will also add Blake Corum from Michigan. I believe he is in serious contention for a Heisman if he can keep at an elite level. And I don't know what I have with tight ends, but you know, Brock Bowers, I still think he's one of the most dynamic players in the country from Georgia. So I think I would have to add him on the list, especially if he starts racking up the touchdowns that I know he can.
Well, I mean, throughout the 2 years that he's been in college, the bigger numbers he's put up have been against inferior opponents. So I know that he does have a lot of collective of good numbers, but the like, if you look at the like summation of the parts don't look as intriguing as the rest of it. So I don't know. He's very good. I'm not denying that, but I still don't think he's better than Kyle Pitts, which for whatever reason, Georgia fans love to compare him to Pitts, even though Pitts is in the NFL and Pitts like nearly broke the record for tight end receiving yards. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know what they like are trying to do. It's like, look, they're kind of completely different games. Like Brock Bowers can block more than Kyle Pitts, and Kyle Pitts is more of like essentially a receiver, but he's still like built like a tight end kind of. But I don't know. I don't want to talk about the comparison. I want to talk about Brock Bowers in college. So like Brock Bowers, you know, that game was against another one of those middling teams that it's like they're not really that strong. Oh, we lost Ian. see if we can get him back. But it's, Brock Bowers, I'm just not a big fan of. And like the hype, like I understand he's very good. I'm not denying that, but I just like this over the top, like he's the best ever. That stuff just is like, that stuff bothers me. I'm not. Kyle Pitts played against a 10-game schedule against all SEC opponents and didn't even play all the games. No, I'm just talking about Kyle Pitts real quick, and then we'll move on. But
Sorry about that. The whole thing.
No, it's fine. But like Kyle Pitts went against an all SEC schedule for the 10 games, didn't play all the games, and still had almost better numbers each year than Bowers had these 2 years. So I get it. Bowers is good, but I still think Kyle Pitts is a different level than Bowers. Okay, moving on. Oh, my picks real quick. I have Caleb Williams at 1, Sam Hartman at 2, Michael Penix, Drake May, and then I do have Travis Jordan just for right now, but I'm sure it'll go away once he doesn't put up crazy numbers in these coming games, because I'm not envisioning that. I still didn't like LSU's defense in that second half, and it was largely to do with why Florida State did what they did. They were playing way off, and their DBs were very, I don't know. It was ugly. It was not good defense in any way. They talked about Harold Perkins all year and like he was going to do so well. And it seemed like he was just a spy the whole time. And it's like, I don't know. I thought he was going to be someone they were going to utilize on the rush, but that never happened. So whatever. It could have been a lot worse game for Jordan Travis, but he got lucky on that one pass where he passed it right to 2 players. And that could have been at least 2 picks. And then it was just like I said, the defense kind of just lost all momentum in that fourth quarter, and they just pretty much gave up, and that was it. Okay. What are your playoff teams, Ian? And then we'll move on.
So right now, my top 6 are Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, Ohio State at 3, Florida State at 4, and I have Bama at 5 and USC at 6.
Okay. I got Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, USC at 3, Notre Dame at 4, Bama at 5, and Florida State at 6. Okay, so let's move on to week 2 games. The first game I have on there is Kansas, Illinois. It's an intriguing game because Kansas had, that really good start last year and kind of fell off just because of a lot of injuries because they didn't have a lot of depth. But Illinois had a strong year. Brent Bielema, as much as he struggled at Arkansas, really knows how to coach these Big Ten teams for whatever reason. He just can get the most out of them. They had a really good defense last year at Illinois. And, and their secondary was definitely one of the best in the country, probably maybe top 5, I think what it was. But what are your thoughts on this, Ian? Who do you got in this one?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of inexperience here because Kansas hasn't seen, this type of defense before, at least not these players. They got off to that really hot start. They did play a lot of, teams with weak defense. Illinois is built on a pretty substantial defense. And I think with that, I'm going to go with Illinois winning this one. I'll go maybe 27-20. I just think they know how to win those games. Defense is going to be tough, and the youth of Kansas will just struggle to pull one out.
I like Illinois more in this one. I think Kansas is going to probably be able to move the ball, but I think Illinois wins in a close one. I'm going to say 23 to I don't know, 14, something like that. Okay, Wake Forest, Vanderbilt. I'm intrigued about this game because Wake Forest is one of the teams I have tabbed to potentially beat Florida State this year. And I largely think that because of the potential of their quarterback. He played in a couple of games last year. He did okay in this first game this year, but if he can get moving in the right direction, potentially be the heir apparent to Sam Hartman, they have a chance to contend against Florida State The game is in Wake Forest when they play it, but Vanderbilt 2-0. They struggled a little bit against Hawaii this year. Will they easily win this one? I don't think so. I think Wake Forest is gonna take this one. I'm gonna say Wake wins like 31-17. That's what I got. What do you got?
I agree, and I think it's mostly because the defense of Vandy hasn't been overly impressive.
Yeah.
They didn't really. The Hawaii game would probably be the best example. Hawaii and Wake do have very similar play calling styles, and I just think although Vandy won that game, I think that was more Hawaii just wasn't as well equipped to win those games. Wake Forest, on the other hand, McGriff's the quarterback for Wake, definitely a more skilled passer. I'm going to take Wake in this one, especially with kind of a pass heavy oriented offense, and that's something Vandy has struggled with. So I'm going to go Wake puts a couple up, pretty similar. I'm going to go 38 to I'll go 20.
Yeah. Okay. Colorado, Nebraska. Now, so this is the season home opener for Colorado. It's, Deion's first game at home as the head coach. I find this interesting because it's Matt Rule has obviously done very well in college at Baylor before he had that stint in the NFL that didn't really go anywhere. But, Nebraska needs a win. And I think Matt Rule being very close last week against Minnesota and losing there at the end was really rough. And it's almost very similar to how the team played in the last couple of years under Scott Frost. So they really need to change the script, flip the script here. They need to get a victory under the belt in some way. It's a very tough opponent for Nebraska to come up against. I like the fact that, this is, that old school rivalry, the Big Eight of many years ago, God, the Big Eight hasn't existed since whenever, but even it was in the Big 12 before Colorado went to the Pac-12, but and Nebraska left too. So it's been a long time since they've really done this rivalry. I can't remember if they've played this game recently, but regardless, it was always a big game. I remember seeing it when I was much younger, like in the early 90s. I remember it being a big thing. Especially when Colorado was good. And, I think Matt Rule has enough in it for the team to be able to get them over the top in this game. But watching that performance of Colorado last week, there's almost no denying it. Like their offense is very good and they're going to move the ball. It really is the thing is like, can Nebraska score that many points? Nebraska only put up like 10 last week.
Yep.
So it's like, are they going to be able to put up 40? I really don't think so. Unless Matt Rule has an ace in the hole with their defense in some way, and they found some way to stop Shedeur Sanders. But I don't think they do. So I think Nebraska wins this one. All right, sorry, Colorado wins this one. I'm going to say like 35 to like, I don't know, like 20. What do you got?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the one thing we're kind of overlooking too from Colorado's win, the defense did not play really elite. Hole was open too many times in the run game, too many big gains, too many positive yards. And other than really Travis Hunter, the coverage was not as good as it can be. And Colorado had a lot of hero ball. That being said, I just don't see, same as you, I don't see Nebraska scoring that many points. Now, Nebraska does have a very stout defense, but I feel like with the speed that Colorado has, they can wear it down and eventually get into the end zone more. And I just don't see Nebraska as I don't, as bad as I think Colorado's defense is, I don't see that offense as well. It's like the reverse of unstoppable force and immovable objects. It's bad offense versus bad defense. But I just don't see Nebraska putting up as many points against Colorado. So I'm going to say the same thing. I'm going to go a bit more conservative. I'll go 28-17 for Colorado.
Okay. Baylor, Utah. Interesting game since Baylor's coming off a loss and Utah.
Pretty bad one.
Yeah. And Utah beat Florida in that opening game. Yeah, Baylor lost to Texas State. So does Baylor get off the schneid? I want to hear your opinion first, and then I'll give mine.
I actually think this game is going to be a lot closer than some might think. I get, Baylor. Pretty bad start when you get upset by, Texas State, which I had to explain to people was a real school when I went into work the next day. It doesn't sound like one of those fake schools like from like Waterboy or something.
Yeah, but, it sounds like something out of a movie, like, I don't know, Northwest Dakota State or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Blue Mountain State. But I do think Baylor's going to come out firing. I think, they'll adjust. I believe, though, just Utah, if Cam Rising is healthy and everybody is healthy, that's a tough team to stop, just whoever you are. So I think I'm going to go with Utah on this one. I think Baylor keeps it close based on, how elite their offense can be. But I just, Utah is the better overall team. So I'm going to go Utah 31-27.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Cam Rising plays. I don't know. It doesn't. The reports don't look great for him, but I don't know. I still think Utah is good enough to beat them. You said 38 to what?
31-27.
31-27. I still feel like Utah is good enough to beat teams without those guys, without Keithy and without Rising. I think as of right now, it looks like they're not going to play. So if that's the case, then I think that Barnes can move the ball if they need to pass it. The Johnson came in and was the change of pace guy. And so they've got enough options there, and their defense is good enough. I don't know how good Baylor's offense is this year. That'll be the key there. If Baylor can move the ball well enough, it might be a struggle. Florida struggled to move the ball, and struggled, on third downs. I think they had one third down conversion the entire game.
Yeah.
And, I heard the rundown of all the third down plays that there were. And it was every one of them was 3rd and 6 and higher. And it was ridiculous how third and long.
It was not manageable.
One. Yeah. So it's they were, and they weren't even getting penalties on 1st and 2nd down. They were just setting themselves in bad position every single third down. And it's man, you're not going to win games. And if Utah can get in that position again against Baylor, then they should be fine. And I think their schedule gets a little easier after that for a little bit. I think they have a couple of cakewalk games. So that would potentially, honestly, again, losing to Baylor is not the end of the world either, because that's not a Pac-12 game. And plus it gives them a one loss wouldn't be the end of the world. They could still get the rest of their goals, potentially get in the playoff too. So, and it's, Baylor, it's a big, it's a Power 5 team. So it's not a terrible loss if they did lose to them, but I still think they can beat them with who they have. Okay. Moving on. So I'm going to give mine. I'm going to say Utah wins probably I'm going to say close score 26 to 17. Okay. NC State, Notre Dame. I'm going to go first. I still really like this team. I'm telling you guys all year, I've been saying it since the jump this year. Notre Dame is my CFP surprise pick, and I'm big on Sam Hartman. Obviously, have him in my Heisman list, and obviously now Notre Dame further into the playoff pick. So Notre Dame presents a very interesting proposition for the rest of the media this year. I have not, I've been surprised because usually most years you hear nothing but Notre Dame when they do well. And yet I think the first two games were against weaker opponents, so you haven't heard as much. This is a better opponent than the first 2 weeks. So we might just start seeing more hype, especially because Notre Dame plays USC October 14th in the middle of the season, which is going to be a huge fucking game, which I potentially might go to. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out my flight situation. I don't know if I can pull it off or not, but either way, it's going to be a huge game, and I'm excited about because you'll have Caleb Williams, you'll have Sam Hartman going up against each other, two Heisman favorites, and then two potential playoff teams. So could be crazy. So I expect Notre Dame to win this game. NC State with Brendan Armstrong kind of struggled last week. Didn't look amazing. So I expect Notre Dame to win this, probably 42, maybe even 42 to I'd say 13. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I'm surprisingly in the same boat as well with this one for Notre Dame. NC State just didn't sell me. Their opening game against UConn, it wasn't a very impressive win. And the offense did stumble a lot. And UConn kind of kept them in there, kept them honest throughout the game. I just think Notre Dame, they'll win and they'll kind of run away with it early. I maybe not as many scores, but I think they'll have control of the game. I'll go 30-7 Irish.
Okay. Iowa State, Iowa, interesting game. Iowa struggled last week. I think they only had 24 points. So I haven't heard too much about Iowa State. So I don't know. I didn't look into how well they're doing. I probably should have because I'm always intrigued about this team. But I want to hear your opinion. Then I'll base my opinion off that. Go ahead.
Yeah, Iowa State. I know they played UNI, which and I believe they won 30 to something. They were more run heavy, I believe, in that game. I believe it was Becht was the leading passer for that game. He did have 2 touchdowns, but only 100 yards. It was more efficient play action, short passing, and it was more out of necessity. Iowa is, offensively is actually starting to look somewhat more functional, I guess would be the best way to put it. But again, they didn't have that good of a win either. 24-14, I think it was against Utah State. So overall, both these teams have a lot to, prove. I think with this one, I'm going to go with Iowa winning this one. I just think the defense is going to be strong enough against same thing. There's a lot of new guys on Iowa State side that I think a very well-developed defense is able to put a hold on, especially of an offense that hasn't been too impressive. I think this is going to be a low-scoring one, but I'm going to go 20-14 Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I'm thinking low-scoring as well, and I don't know. I haven't been the biggest fan of Iowa the last couple of years just because their offense has been putrid, to say the least, and Iowa State has been kind of disappointing ever since Brock Purdy left. They've really been kind of, I don't know. I expected more from them the last 2 years, and it's been kind of a big letdown. Maybe they come back in this game, and maybe they surprise everyone, and maybe they pull it off. So I'm just gonna go with that. I'm gonna say 24 to 13 Iowa State. All right, interesting game. Last year was a really close game. It was kind of a boring game because it was low scoring. But Miami still had a chance at the end of this game last year. But Miami, Texas A&M, it's in the return trip to Miami that Texas A&M owes the Hurricanes. So they come in. Miami beat their lowly opponent, and Texas A&M took care of their FCS opponent, whatever.
Now, New
Again,
Mexico's a D1.
yeah, I know, but it's like
Barely.
low
We're
D1.
gonna put
Yeah,
barely.
exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like the opponents they both had were like they're just
They were layups.
yeah, practice dummies, so it doesn't prove anything. We don't actually know if Texas A&M's offense improved, if Bobby Petrino is making a difference or not. The score was high, they scored like 50 plus points, so that's good, but that's against a smaller opponent that is not nowhere near the level of opponent that they're playing each other this weekend. Plus the same thing with Miami. Miami's offense struggled last year mightily and was a large part of the reason that they went 5-7 and didn't go to a bowl. So I think Texas A&M is going to win this game, and largely to do with the talent that they have. And I know Miami definitely recruited well the last year, especially last year. They were in the top 5 recruiting class in 2023. So they have some guys, but I think those guys are a little too young. Texas A&M's recruiting class from, 22? Those guys are now essentially sophomores and redshirt freshmen. They've gotten way more experience, and I think they're ready to go. And, their receiving core is pretty solid. Weigman is a solid quarterback. Not that Tyler Van Dyke isn't. Tyler Van Dyke is fine. I think he just struggled last year, whatever reason. I don't know. I never believed in the offensive coordinator for Miami last year. And, he's gone now, which, good for them. I think it was Gaddis was his name. But if Tyler Van Dyke can play well, they have a chance. But I still think A&M's going to take it. And I'm going to go with A&M winning. I'm going to say like 23 to like 20. And it'd probably be close. I'm guessing close. You got?
I agree. I think it's going to be close. I think, especially because Miami had a more well-balanced attack. They did very good at kind of balancing between the run and the pass. But I just think same thing. A&M has more talent, more developed talent is a better way to put it. And Miami is definitely getting better, but I don't think they're at the level to win these type of games. But I think it's going to be close. So I'm going to go A&M pulls out of this one. I'm going to go with a 28-24 win for the Aggies.
Okay, the next game is an interesting game. I really like this matchup. It is Tulane and Ole Miss. You don't see I'm surprised Tulane doesn't play a lot more SEC teams, considering that they used to be in the
I was going to
SEC.
say they used to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like in the 30s. But I'm saying like last like 20 years, like you never see them. They hardly ever play they should play LSU every year. That should just be a standard that they play LSU every year. They don't. And they should play like Ole Miss. They should play Mississippi State. They should play Missouri. They should play Tennessee. They should play Alabama, especially. I don't know. I'm intrigued why they don't, but whatever. We're here, so let's break this down. Tulane has got a lot of guys coming back from last year. They had a really good run. They beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. Ole Miss is a very good offense with Lane Kiffin calling plays. And Jackson Dart running the show. So I'm going to say Ole Miss probably wins this, but it's going to be close. I'm going to say like a probably 34 to like 28 game.
I think Tulane is definitely one of the best group of 5 teams. But when you just look at how efficient that offense is, it's literally an engine for Ole Miss. I don't see them dropping a game like this. I think they pull away. I think maybe it gets close early, but late in the game, Ole Miss just has the more efficient offense that they win this one. I'm going to go 42-24 for the Rebels.
Damn, that's a stomping. Okay, your Roadrunners, UTSA, and speaking of Texas State. What do you? I want to hear your opinion on these guys.
Yeah, UTSA, I still think they're the best team in the American. And they're still my pick to win the American. What's interesting is that this last game they kind of they didn't lose to Houston, but again they made that close. They made that tougher than it probably should have been, and the defense really showed up, which was surprising. UTSA isn't really, past couple of years, especially last year, wasn't well known with that. Texas State, on the other hand, big upset against Baylor. Texas State has had very high-powered offense. I believe they average almost 400 yards a game. I think this is going to be a shootout. But I think because I believe the defense is stronger for UTSA, is going to be I'm going to go Roadrunners winning this one in a shootout. I'm going to go 45-41 Roadrunners.
Yeah, I mean, so we don't know too much about this Texas State team because, there's a lot of transfers coming in. And
I know TJ Finley. He was that's the one I remember.
That's about the only one we know about, the only player that we're really aware of. But everyone else on Texas State is kind of like a question mark. So I'm going to say that UTSA wins just because they've been, a solid team for the last several years. Texas State did get that win against Baylor, so they have a lot of momentum coming into this game. But I think UTSA offensively is probably better than Baylor was, and that's probably why Baylor lost that game. And I mean, it's clearly because UTSA, that's like their whole, identity is being able to move the ball quickly and get down the field and score. So I'm going to say UTSA wins this one. I'm going to say like 38 to like 28. And you had UTSA winning, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Okay. Just double checking. Okay. Next one is Washington Tulsa. Interesting game because Tulsa is one of those teams in the AAC that, for whatever reason, will struggle with a lot of bad teams. But then when they play like better teams, like they've played UCF the last 10 years and beaten them quite a few times. I think
they beat Houston last year.
Yeah, exactly. They've beaten quality teams over the last 10 years. They'll definitely rise up to the competition, but then they play down a terrible competition. This is a much better team that they'll play this weekend in Washington and Michael Penix Jr. So I still think Penix Jr. gets the job done. They destroyed Boise State last week. I envision Washington winning at least, like, I'm going to say probably 37 to like 20.
Yeah, I think Tulsa's whole identity, especially offensively, has been about balance. Again, very good with, the run and the pass. But this one, I think Washington's going to have to find themselves. They did blow out Boise State, but the defense definitely let a lot of yards, probably too many yards that they were happy with. But I'm going to go Washington wins this one, and I think they'll run away. I think the defense adjusts, and Tulane will just get that monkey wrench thrown into the bounce attack. I'm going to go Huskies. I'll go 42 to 20.
Okay, moving on to North Carolina App State. This was a great game last year. It was back and forth and a crazy finish. App State had an opportunity at the end of the win that game last year. I like Drake May a lot. I think he's definitely up there with Caleb Williams for top quarterback, going top 5 in the draft coming up this year. So I envision him having a really good game. I'm going to say like he probably puts up at least 300 yards and probably 3 TDs. And I'm going to say North Carolina wins this one a little more handedly than last year. and obviously last year was very close. But I'm gonna say North Carolina wins like 42 to like 28. That's what I got. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, that game last year was fantastic.
Yeah.
And App State almost pulled away with it.
Yeah.
But a trend that has definitely been a thing is App State, just in general, really struggles on the road. Their last road win was the one against Texas A&M.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I think when you go into that environment and the crowd is obviously excited after that win against South Carolina, I just don't think that's really a winning formula for App State. I do think App State, they have proven again and again that they will bite teams in the ass. And I do think they'll come out and they will always play a quality game. But I just think North Carolina, they don't fall into that trap. They should learn their lesson from last year, getting by the skin of their teeth last year. So I think North Carolina puts this one away. I'm going to go Tar Heels 31 to 18.
Yeah, I mean that sounds about right. I just think this Tar Heel team is really good, and I think they're gonna have a really good year. Okay, moving on. Oklahoma, SMU, old Big 8 matchup or whatever the conference was back in the day, to now.
Was Oklahoma in the Southwest?
I don't even remember because it's all.
I remember it was the Texas schools in I don't think they were in the Southwest Conference.
Well, Big 8 was like Oklahoma,
Nebraska, Oklahoma State,
Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma State, I believe.
Yeah. Because I remember the Southwest was just like Texas and Arkansas.
Yeah. I don't know. It's, I'd have to look that up. But anyways, so Oklahoma, SMU, it's funny how Oklahoma is is on a very similar path as Florida, where Oklahoma went 6-7, lost their bowl game, and had a new coach last year. And so it's, Florida goes on the road and loses their game. So they're unranked before the season and then continue to be unranked. Well, Oklahoma, I can't remember if they started ranked or not, but they win their easy game, which is a layup, and they score 70 points or whatever. And
they
then
beat them like they stole them.
Yeah. And so they get ranked, and it's like, oh, well, it's funny how it's very similar paths, but yet completely different narratives because of the fact that they open their season against a tomato can. And this is not a tomato can. Like, SMU is definitely a team that will score points, especially with their head coach, who is an offensive guru. So let's see what happens. I'm intrigued because, if Oklahoma really is gotten to that point where they're turned the corner, maybe to an 8-4, maybe 9-3 team this year, they would win this game. But I think SMU wins this game because I like SMU, and I think SMU is going to win I'm going to say 34 to 30. It's going to be close, but I think SMU pulls it off. What do you got?
I think SMU will definitely will be a tough game. This is not a layup game by any means, and Oklahoma should not walk into it that way. But if they showed me anything from last week, is that Oklahoma is a much more disciplined, focused team going into this year. They knew last year was unacceptable. So I think SMU, it's going to be a bit of a back and forth game, but especially based on how the secondary played for Oklahoma, I'm going to take Oklahoma winning this one. Again, typical Western shootout. I'm going to go 38 to 30 for the Sooners.
Yeah, so it looks like we both have a close game. So, and I think it will be a close game regardless of who wins. Okay, Pitt, Cincinnati. This was, I'm trying to think if they ever were in the Big East together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Cincinnati was, yeah. So, man, this is a long time ago, Big East matchup. But now Cincinnati's in the Big 12 and Pitt's in the ACC. So, Pitt, I actually did a little research on them earlier in the year. I don't like their quarterback situation. I'm not really too fond of where they're going there. The rest of their team is solid, but if you're going to struggle at quarterback, you're not going to have the greatest of years, which I don't think they're going to have. Cincinnati, on the other hand, is our old friend Emory Jones and Xavier Henderson. And so we'll see if they can actually live up to the billing, because they got so much hype after that last game last week. Are they actually going to really contend against these teams? And I don't know. Emory, it sucked what happened at Florida. A lot of people expected a lot of great things out of him, and it just didn't happen for whatever reason. He struggled with certain things. It never really, it also didn't help that Dan Mullen couldn't figure out how to make him better, which that was a real pain in the ass. And it also was real pain in the ass because, Anthony Richardson was right behind Emory, and he didn't bench Emory till it was too late. And he benched him during the Georgia game, which, like, what good did that do? You should have benched him way before that. But I don't know. Regardless, that's rehashing stuff that doesn't matter. But I wish Emory the best. I don't know if he'll end up getting onto an NFL roster into next year, but at least he has this year to play ball again, and we'll see if it happens. He's very athletic. He can move the ball. His passing passing game is not the best. I don't know. I mean, Cincinnati, they've had a good team the last couple of years. They went to the playoff 2 years ago. Luke Fickell left, and the Louisville coach takes over. And I'm intrigued to see what happens with this Cincinnati team because of that. And then they're also entering into the Big 12. What happens going forward with them? I'm going to say, I don't know, struggle between these two teams. This is a tough decision. I'm going to say Cincinnati wins just because I don't like the quarterback play with Pitt. I'm going to say Cincinnati wins like a low-scoring one, like 24-20. That's what I got. What do you got?
I'm going to go with Pitt because I believe Pitt has shown that based on defense, that they can stop this type of attack. They have faced these kind of fast, mobile, both quarterbacks and playmakers on both the wide receiver and signal calling. The defense has shown that they can do that, especially last year. I believe Pitt will find a way to win this one. I think they're going to keep it low scoring, and they're going to try to keep the ball away from Cincinnati. I think that's going to be the key. If they can keep away from Cincinnati and get it out of the hands of playmakers, I think Pitt wins this one. So I'm going to go more low scoring. I'm going to go 27-17 for Pitt.
Okay, I got the next game, the big game of the day, Alabama, Texas. It was a really exciting game last year, very close, low scoring, which was a surprise. We thought there was going to be more scoring. Quinn Ewers was hurt during that game, so Texas's backup came in for him during that end of the first half and the rest of the second half. And there was a struggle. It was, close near the end. Alabama took the lead with like a minute left, and then Texas had a chance and then wasn't able to finish it off. So does Texas redeem themselves in Tuscaloosa? I'm not the biggest fan of Milroe. I don't think that he is the most talented as far as the passing game goes. He's still very talented as far as his running ability, and he can make plays. I think his accuracy is the biggest issue, which if he can get that up, they have a better chance. I just like Quinn Ewers better as a seasoned quarterback that's been in there longer. Milroe may eventually get there. And, he's still a young guy, so there's a chance. But I like Ewers in this game, and I like them to finish off Alabama. I'm going to say Texas wins probably 27 to like 23. It's going to be a close game, but I still think Alabama Just doesn't have enough this time to withstand him. But what do you got?
I'll just go back to what I've always said about these kind of games. It's when you have teams where I do believe talent-wise, Texas is getting there. They're already there. I think they have every right and potential to win the Big 12. But again, there's a difference between, teams that know how to win. Alabama, these kids, and Nick Saban, they know how to win these games. They know how to keep that ball away out of there. Same thing as I mentioned with Pitt and Cincinnati. Alabama is the expert at that. They know the offense is the engine that gets Texas those wins. So they're going to play keep away, and they're going to milk that clock as long as possible. So again, I just think it's a matter of keep away and coaching. And I think Nick Saban will have it dialed up. I think if they can make it where it's a low-scoring keep-away game, I think that's what really bit Bama in the ass last year, is that they had to play these shootout games. That is not Alabama's game. They can win those games, but that's not the way they want to play. But I think Alabama's going to get the game they want and force it that way, especially with as elite of a defense they have. So I'm going to go Bama winning this one. I'm going to go same thing. I'm going to go like 24-14. I just think they're trying to keep that ball away from Texas as much as possible.
Okay. Another interesting cross-conference, interconference game, or intra-conference game, Texas Tech, Oregon. I like Bo Nix. I think that he's done quite well the last year and then into this year. So I think that they can win this game. Texas Tech did not look that strong last Saturday. So I'm going to say Oregon probably wins this. I'm going to say probably 38 to like 27. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go Oregon wins this one with just by the offense alone, because Tech's defense is not at that level to stop that kind of speed. So I'm going to go Oregon winning. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I think they'll have enough of a cushion. I'll go with 34-20 victory for the Ducks.
Okay, next one I've got is Boise State, UCF. Boise State got blown out by Washington, so can they come back from that devastating loss? UCF destroyed their weak opponent that they played in week one. I don't know how much we know about UCF from that first game. Like I said, when you play a terrible team, it doesn't really showcase your skill set. It's really kind of masking all that. Boise State did play a good opponent and got destroyed, so they have a lot to work on. I'm thinking Boise State might have taken that ass whooping and turned things around a little bit. It's in Boise, so it might play in their favor because UCF has to travel so far. Florida traveled really far and they struggled in their game. I think Boise can win this one, but it's going to be close. I'm going to say like Boise wins I'm going to say like 31-28.
That I have them winning by 3 points too, but for UCF.
Okay.
I'm the same way. I think both these games this game is going to be really close. Boise, I think, will have a bounce back, but man, that defense, that's they got to prove me wrong. So I'm going to go UCF winning this one close. Mine was 27-30 for the Knights.
Okay. All right. So it's Wear Green Wednesday, and you're not wearing your green.
I know. If it's any consolation, I mean, I did go to class yesterday, so I had, I am supporting them by giving them my freaking money tuition.
Yeah. So anyway, USF FAMU, the way the offense played last week, it should dictate that USF should be able to move the ball against a lesser opponent. I will say that FAMU is probably one of the premier FCS teams right now the last several years. So they're definitely not to be fucked with, not to be taken lightly. FAMU will definitely score points and play extremely well. The game is in Tampa at Raymond James. I think Alex Golish is going to want to put a lot of points on them because they struggled to put up a ton of points against Western Kentucky last week, even though they played well. I think he wants to put up at least 40 points. So I'm going to say like USF wins like I'm going to say 42 to like 28. I hope the defense plays better, and we'll see. Maybe they do, but I'm just thinking because FAMU is a good team that they're still going to be able to move the ball well, regardless of the fact that USF's defense is better than it was last year. But what do you got?
I'm right there with you. I think Florida A&M is going to kind of put a scare in USF. Because again, they are on one of the premier FCS teams, especially after winning. I think they beat Jack. Yeah, it was Jackson State last year or last week. I think USF finds a way to win and ends this losing streak, but I don't think it's going to come easy. Again, the big thing is can that team going into the fourth quarter stay healthy and just be able to catch their breath and be ready for that hurry up count, because they were just gassed going into the fourth quarter, and you're not going to win games like that. So I think with attrition being the key, I think USF finds a way to win a bit closer, but same with you. I'm going to go with a 35-20 win for the Bulls.
It's technically not closer, Ian. Your math is failing you.
Well, they pull away late.
Anyway, so moving on to the Florida game. Florida, McNeese. This is going to be a blowout. McNeese is one of the worst teams in FCS. They got blown out last week. So I'm going to say Florida recovers from that devastating loss last week against Utah. They already have Trey Wilson starting as one of the starting receivers. So there's a change there. So you'll see more of him, which, he did amazing in his time that he played last week. So except for his punt returns, but his offensive snaps were quite beneficial, and getting him the ball seems to be the focus. And I largely agree. He's probably the best playmaker that Florida has, and can make a difference going forward. The defense was a lot better than I think we expected. So hopefully the defense continues that trend. I'm going to say they hold McNeese to a low score total, and I'm going to say Florida puts up like 51 to like, I'd say like 14. That's what I'm going with. What do you got, Ian?
I think the biggest emphasis that I'm looking for is how is the run game going to respond to a very bad performance, and how is the offensive line going to support it? So I think very early on we're going to see the run. We're going to see Etienne and Montrell Johnson get the ball a lot, and I think depending on that, we'll see how far the score goes. I am going to give Florida the win. And I think the defense definitely has shown signs of improvement from last year, so I think they're going to do a good job keeping McNeese State at bay. I'm just really interested to see how the run game is going to be. So I'm going to go Florida winning this one. I'll go 42-10.
Yeah. Okay. Next one, interesting intra-conference game. Washington State, Wisconsin. Washington State, them and Oregon State got left holding the bag and are now with the Pac-2. But Washington State going up against Wisconsin. The game is in God, I can't remember what's the name of the city.
Martin Stadium?
No, Washington State's city. My friend went to school there. I can't remember the name.
Oh, yeah.
It's Pullman, maybe, or something. It's a small town. It's not a very big town.
Yeah, it's don't tell me.
It's all right. We'll move on. So
yeah.
So I feel because Luke Fickell is now at Wisconsin and they played well against Buffalo last week. This is a better opponent than Buffalo. I don't. I actually didn't see what Washington State did last week, so I'm going to say it's going to be a close game because Wisconsin doesn't have that much firepower, and I'm going to say it's probably going to be like a 28-24 game, and I'm going to go with Washington State taking it in that close of a game. But what do you got, Ian?
This one I'm by the way, it's Pullman.
I was right. That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. I think with this one again, I kind of value defenses more, and I just think as good as a quarterback as Ward is for Washington State, I think the more
Ward. I forgot about Ward.
Yeah, but I think with that run game, just punch through that line and just wear a team down style that Wisconsin has. I think that is really going to be the difference maker, especially with Washington State, who historically defensively hasn't been very impressive. So I think Wisconsin just wears them down and finds a way to win. I'm going to go with a 24-17 win for the Badgers.
Okay, next game is a game that I might go to. UCLA, San Diego State in San Diego. I do want to go because I want to check out the stadium because the Aztec Stadium is what a lot of people in Tampa are comparing to what USF can do for their on-campus stadium. And it is a nice stadium. There's some things that obviously USF fans are wanting them to do a little bit different, specifically with shade, which I hope they do try to implement at for the Bulls Stadium. But I'm intrigued about this game because San Diego State has been one of the better group of 5 teams over the last 10 years and always been solid. They've, every couple of years they'll win 9 or 10 games. So they're definitely someone not to be written off easily. But I like this UCLA team a lot. I like the defense. I liked how they played last week. I like the new coordinator, Lynn. Dante Moore is potentially a huge stud. I mean, he was like a top 2 recruit coming out last year. So he definitely has the potential. Like the sky's the limit for him. And he's very athletic. And, the passing game is a work in progress, but he, it was 7 of 12 or 13, which is not terrible.
It was a lot, but it was.
But yeah, he wasn't in the game that much. He was only in for I think 5 or 6 possessions. So we'll see, but he had a lot of really good plays. So he definitely has the potential 2 touchdowns. I'm going to say UCLA wins this one. I'm going to say 30 to 19. That's what I got. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I just think UCLA, they just have the better talent. I do think San Diego State is good. They are not off to the greatest start, though. They didn't look that impressive in their win against Idaho State. But I just think UCLA is just going to pull away just based on the talent level between them. So I'm going to go UCLA 38-14.
Yeah, and shout out to my chiropractor, Dr. Forrest, who's a former UCLA running back back in the 70s. He actually played in the Rose Bowl against Ohio State in 75, I believe, and they won.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, and he said they had a shot at winning the national title, and because they were a West Coast team, they didn't get the love that they should have. Okay, moving on. Speaking of, this is his favorite team to hate, USC. USC Stanford. Last year, this was kind of like the game that started to show that USC was potentially a really good team because they really did well in that game on the road. I think this year, the game being in LA at the Coliseum is going to be more of the same, but probably even worse because I'm expecting USC to put up a lot of points. I'm going to say they probably put up 50. I'm going to say 54 and I'm going to say Stanford scores maybe 17. It's going to be a blowout. Stanford's not very good, and USC's offense is dominant. So that's what I'm going with. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. Stanford's just not the team to pull this off yet. I'm especially again defensively, not the greatest history for Stanford, but I'm going to go USC. Same. I'll go with the running away. I'll go 45-20 for the Trojans.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting game. Cal Auburn in Berkeley, which I'm like, wow, how did they get Auburn to come all the way out to Cal? So this Cal team has been like kind of middle of the road, but they put up a fight against USC last year, and I think they can put a scare into Auburn, but I like Hugh Freeze a lot, and I think this game is a huge benefit to Auburn getting them into the flow of things of the season, because this is not necessarily on the level of an SEC team, but it is on the level of like a lower level SEC team. So essentially, this is as close to like a SEC opener you could get without having to have an SEC opener. And so I think Auburn puts up a lot of points. I think Auburn scores like, I don't know, I'm guessing like probably 35. And I'm guessing Cal probably scores a lot too. And I'm going to say like 24. That's what I'm going with. What do you got?
I'm in the same boat. I just think though, I'm going to go Cal in this one.
Oh, wow.
I think,
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I just think Cal, they definitely have the talent on the defensive side as well as the offensive side to put a stop on the Auburn offense. I don't think Auburn's offense, again, a lot of young guys, both of these teams are, but they haven't had to go through endurance like this. So I think there's going to be a real test for Hugh Freeze to see if they can pull it out. But I'm going to take Cal on this one. I'm going to go with a 28-25, very close win for the Golden Bears.
Okay, last game, Arizona State, Oklahoma State. You know, I don't know what this Oklahoma State team is going to be like this year. They were not great last year after the year before going to the Big 12 championship and barely losing. And what will happen to them this year? I don't know. Arizona State, that's an intriguing team too. They're kind of teams in a crossroads type position. You know, Arizona State has struggled the last several years. Can Arizona State finally turn things around? I'm going to say Oklahoma State wins this one. I'm going to say Oklahoma State wins like, I'm going to say 31 to like 24. What do you got?
I think I'm on the same one with this one. I think just Oklahoma State, though, has impressed me more than Arizona State has the last couple of years, especially the last more recently.
Yeah.
I don't see Oklahoma State dropping this one. Arizona State's still rebuilding. It's a big rebuild. They are getting better, but again, really, I mean, they won 24-21 against SWU last year or last week. So I'm going to go Oklahoma State just runs away with this one. I'm going to go 34-7 for the Cowboys.
Sweet. Okay, that is it. That is the show. So you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The social for that is Hater_radio for all three of those. On Facebook, it's Hater Radio CFB. For YouTube, it's Hater Radio at Hater Radio. That's an easy one to remember. Then haterradio1@gmail.com. You can check out all of our articles at haterradio.com. Every week we do the show every Wednesday and every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Check us out on all the formats, and it'll be uploaded to YouTube and all the podcast formats you can find us. Ian, what are your socials real quick before we go?
Yes, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, at GGatorG.
All right, that's it, y'all. Have a good week. Enjoy these games. Take care.